with the first time since 2012 that there's been neither Stuart Broad or Jimmy Anderson in the England side, and that, of course, if memory serves me right, was the day-night game at Edgbaston when they were controversially rested. So in fact, it wasn't as though they were injured or anything like that. They had a rest. So it's the farewell, obviously, to Jimmy Anderson. We saw it at Lord's, and here we saw the Stuart Broad end officially named following his retirement last summer. So what does life after those two look like? I've got Peter Moores alongside me. It's lovely to see you again, Peter.
Nice to see you, Agus.
Yes, it's a shame you weren't at the Taverners last night, but you were working.
Busy.
Just up the road from where you live, but it was a very nice night. Your wife was on good form, she behaved herself. Peter, of course, England coach back in 2008, and the man who moved England on, remember bringing in Broad and Anderson, moving Matthew Hoggard and Steve Harmison aside in New Zealand, and Nottinghamshire coach, of course. Alistair Cook's along it. He's to my left. Here we go. And Will McPherson for the Telegraph, who watched a lot of county cricket and as well as the international game. Nice to have you here, Will.
Yeah, I guess.
And let's start with you then, Peter. Well, I'm going to start with Will, because you're on the trail. Does it feel like a new era to you? Does it feel like the start, sort of first day of something new?
It does. There are also Mark Wood and Chris Wokes in England's attack, and Ben Stokes has played 100.
That's the strange one, isn't it?
It is slightly curious, but I do think, just it does feel like something very different without an Anderson or a Broad in the side. It's been two kind of great celebrations, isn't it? The Oval at the end of last summer, and well, it was in the middle of the summer, wasn't it? It was end of July, but Oval and then the Lord's Test last week with Anderson have both felt almost ceremonial, and then now this is where it starts. I mean, Peter knows Dylan Pennington very well. He is very close to a debut, I think. I would hope that comes next week, and there's a few other names popping around. Matthew Potts hasn't played too much for England, so yeah, it does feel new, even with Wokes and Wood, who have been around the traps for a few years.
Yeah. Peter, how easy is it to move on? I mean, that was quite a brutal decision you had to make, wasn't it, then?
Yeah, I think normally it's not just what you see in games. You get a sense, I think, about where a player might be at and where they are in their career, and you don't want all your players to finish at the same time. So I think Stuart and Jimmy they've been absolutely everything to this England team for such a long time. I think it feels like a good time, because you've still got Ben Stokes, who started to bowl again, as Will said, with people like Wokes still around, and then seeing a fresh crew come in, I think, is exciting for English cricket at a good time, because I think under McCullum and Stokes they've got a really nice environment for people to come into.
Yeah. Is it as much a right time for the people who have moved on as much as an important time for those who are actually going to come in? Like, this has to be the time. Did you think that with Broad and Anderson? Look, if we don't do it now, we're going to miss out 2 or 3 really good years from them.
I don't think it works like that, if I'm honest, because I think international players, and Cookie will have a view on that after doing the same thing for a long time. You're a long time retired, and in some ways, I mean, we had the pleasure or the pain of watching Jimmy bowl at Southport for his warm-up test,
of course,
before the test match, and he bowled. It was on a pitch where there was a little bit in it, but he got more than anybody else at that pitch. But it wasn't that. It was effortless the way he did it. There's a great phrase, I think, by the ballet dancers, that the goal is to not see the effort behind the movement. And it's a lovely phrase.
Yes.
And I think all brilliant sport, when a batter bats beautifully, it sort of seems effortless the way he scores. When Jimmy bowled that day, and he bowled a 10-over spell, the ground was literally silent until he got another wicket, but it was just beautiful to watch. And honestly, I sat there as Nott's coach, and he's bowling us out, but I thought it's going to be a real shame not being able to see that again, because he's still the top of his game.
Well, you could offer him a 3-year deal or something.
Yeah, we could, and it did cross my mind. There's a bit more miles in the clock here.
Yeah.
But actually, I also smiled this morning because I saw Mick Newell, our director of cricket, who said, "You'll never believe what I saw this morning." I said, "No, go on then, Mick, what happened?" He said, "Well, I saw James Anderson walk onto the field at 5 to 9. Which I don't think we've seen before. I don't think.
Really,
with a pair of wicket-keeping gloves on and a coaching bag.
Yeah. Do you think it's the right decision? I mean, if you were England coach now and you've got the Ashes, I hate looking ahead to the Ashes to 18 months down the line. It doesn't seem right. But you've got the future, and you've got a summer here in which you can prepare a team for the future. Let's leave it at that. Would you have made that step? Would you have finished Jimmy Anderson off?
Morsey's having a little coughing attack. I'll take over. The one thing I'll have about before Morsey answer that question, I'm going to go back to a little bit. When Jimmy and Broady took over, so when Morsey got rid of Hoggy and Harmson, but kind of made the decision on those two, what that did for Stuart and Jimmy, after always been bowling like not third change, but not leading the attack, not making the decisions. Now they had 20 odd test matches probably each, or probably a few more for Jimmy. It really made them have to step up and up their game and deliver and lead. So when people leave, like so obviously Stuart and Jimmy have left, they're obviously a big void, but it gives just what a time for Chris Woakes now to be, he's 50 games, I know he's 34, but he's 50 games into a brilliant test career for England. His stats in England are phenomenal. He gets that time now where he kind of can lead the side, and it's amazing what happens. It happened to Chris Woakes in the one-day game when Stuart Broad finished in 2015, and it was down to him to lead. His bowling went through the roof. So it is very hard when you are finishing legends' careers in a sense, like the decision. But what it can do is then the growth of those players, I actually think, happens quicker because you have to do it, and they'll find
the
out.
point I was making
more.
in a way that development is important as well.
Well, I look back to Jimmy, and Jimmy came in. I think he got a fifer straight away. I think
Wellington, was it?
Wellington, yeah. But his journey went through. We played at Old Trafford after he was in, so I think Harmy might have been around.
Harmy's still around till 2009.
Still around, I think.
Yeah.
But Jimmy basically, it was time for Jimmy to step up and lead the attack, and he bowled poorly before lunch. I remember sitting down at lunchtime, and he was upset about it, frustrated, and saying to him, now's the time. If you're going to lead the attack, and you've been given the opportunity, you step in now, it'll make you as a player. And he came in, I think, got 3 for after lunch, got a 5 for. And I still see him now, he smiled about it, but those things are what Cookie's saying. You can't get that opportunity unless you're throwing the ball. Yeah. And you're the man who's got to do it. Yeah.
Would you have finished him now if you were England coach?
If
I like that. His attack, he faked a coughing once, he didn't have
honestly,
you could cough as much as like,
he's still going, Aggers.
Honestly.
Imagine when I was interviewing as a captain, you always like that. Never let me off.
Honestly, I don't think so. I think I would have kept him going, would have played him all the time. You've got to be on the inside. I think I knew when I spoke to Jimmy at Southport, he didn't really want to finish.
No.
He was desperate to carry on. He looks fit, he looks strong. No one wants him to finish when he suddenly gets an injury and can't play.
Correct.
So you want him to have his moment. But after watching him that day, I thought, now there's more miles in the tank.
Interesting, eh?
It is indeed. I mean, I think one of the things about Jimmy is he's always going to really struggle to come to that decision himself. You look at someone like Cookie, he walked off stage at 33. He'd played a lot of cricket, but you'd carried on playing for Essex for years.
I was rubbish. That's why I had to go. Jimmy keeps on going.
Jimmy, he's 41. When would he have reached that decision himself? I think England realised in India, the management possibly realised in India that they were going to have to make a call at some stage. And they have undergone this big pivot in the last fortnight, where, especially in the way they're talking, the first 2 years it was all be where your feet are and take every game as it comes. Now they're unashamedly talking about Australia in 2025.
Which is quite unusual, isn't it? I mean,
it's a long way out.
When Andy Flower was coach, you couldn't talk about it that summer. Yeah. Remember, up there, they played New Zealand first, I think. We couldn't mention the Ashes, although it was about 3 weeks later. Yeah. So they're taking a very... It's deliberate.
Yes, I think it is. I think Ben Stokes possibly has had a fire lit in him by last summer, the way that all went, and the way that series was so brilliant and so captivating that people are still talking about it now. We've had the various documentaries come out, and you still see Ben getting drawn into social media stoushes with Australian media and things like that. So I think it is a curiously long time to be looking at it, but I think that rivalry is pretty hot at the moment, and Ben himself possibly realised he's got one last shot at it as captain, and they maybe mucked it up a bit last summer to go 2-0 down, leave themselves with so little wiggle room. And if you look at the attack that England fielded in the Ashes last summer, it was an old attack, Woakson would have survived. Ollie Robinson, interestingly, has slipped out of the side, because you look at the England attack and you go, well, you've got either players like Wood and Wokes who've got a lot of experience, and Anderson was like that, and Stokes as well. I mean, you've got players with very few caps at all, and Robinson was the only one in between with sort of 20 odd caps, bit to build on, but they've decided that at least for now he's not going to be around, which is another pretty significant decision given his record. He averages under 23 in Test cricket.
He's one of the most natural bowlers I think I've ever seen. It's a beautiful, easy release. He learnt that wobble seam in no time. I mean, we don't know what's happened there, but I mean, he seems to be the big one that's missing out of this, don't you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's got that balance of pace, length and line that match. Doesn't matter what the pace is then. If it matches, we saw someone like Philander have it.
Yeah.
That sort of kick off the pitch.
Absolutely. No apparent reason.
No apparent reason, just beautiful. Great
Yeah.
wrist position, efficient action, and a beautiful bowler. So my gut feel is, I don't know, I'm not on the inside anymore, but it's part of they want him to move on as a pro. To become the sort of player that they can see he is. And maybe by leaving him out and seeing some other people, what's going to happen, because they know if he doesn't, he goes to Australia and breaks down, then that could cost them a series. You can't afford to risk that. So you're going to have to set out a bit. If you show us that inside you is a passion to play for your country, and you're going to do the work that goes with it, because I've been lucky enough to coach a lot of the guys who've played a lot, and Jimmy and Brodie, two of them who played so long, either at county level or internationally. You see how they go about it, and there's a fitness and there's a work rate. Cookie, absolutely brilliant professional, and that way you can play 12 months a year, because county cricket is 6 months a year, so you get a break. Internationally there's no break, it just keeps coming. And so I think they want Ollie to learn that, or decide he can do it, and then he earns the privilege back to be wearing an England shirt.
They've been quite ruthless with Ollie Robinson in that usually managers and coaches like Peter are quite protective of their players, aren't they? They don't say anything negative about people, but actually twice now in Ollie Robinson's career, they've pretty much hung him out there and talked about his fitness and attitude and that sort of a thing.
Well, the John Lewis one was strange in the middle of a tour. In one sense, that was, and I have been there, and I'm sure there's some terrible articles and some stuff come out when you're 3 or 4-0 down in Ashes series away and you've got one game to go. Things come out which shouldn't have come out, and I actually personally think that was the wrong time for John Lewis to say that. We've all made mistakes in other ones. This one, I think they gave him one warning and he got himself fit enough, and then there's obviously something happened in India which we're not privy to. No, I was in Stockholm watching that, so I mean I wasn't anywhere else, however many miles away from that. There's something that's happened there which has made Ben Stokes decide that for this moment of time he's not the person I want around this team. You'd have thought James Anderson going, he would be the natural kind of holding bowler to replace James Anderson. From what we've seen so far, something has happened, and it's now down to Ollie Robinson, I would say, to earn the trust back of England's leaders. And there's been some great stories that have passed, and there'll be in the future, of players who've had that wake-up call, and it might take 2, it might take 3 times, and then they fly for a bit. And as Morsey said really well, he has got something very different to a lot of bowlers, of that something about that action and that height and that length which makes him average 23 in Test cricket. There's something happened which we might never find out, and it's literally all the balls are in Ollie Robinson's court, down to him. If he responds well and he shows everything, there's no reason why we won't see him in England shirt again.
As we look at contenders, Peter, how much is taken into account of, we talk about the balance of the side all the time, don't we? 4 bowlers, 5 bowlers, all that sort of stuff. How much account is taken into the balance of the type of bowler, the type of pace bowler? I mean, of all these names you've got here, at the moment, I don't see another Jimmy Anderson popping up. But does that matter? I mean, how do you structure a 4-man pace attack? Or are they just the best 4 that you've got?
Well, I mean, county cricket is different to international cricket. You've got to accept it, because take Surrey as one of the most successful county sides at the moment. They play 5 seamers. And none of those seamers probably bowl more than 16 overs in a day. Now, I could speak to Brodie and he'd say straight away, I love playing a 3-man pace attack with a spinner, because I know I'm going to bowl 22 in a day. I know what I've got, and I've got to do my work. Now, depending on what side you go with, Australia often go 3 and 1 spinner. You've got to be used to doing that workload. Now, county teams, it's different because we play an international 12-month schedule in 6 months. So that protects your bowler. Pace is still a great thing to have. Less at county level. Well, not less at county level. You can also be very successful at county level with less pace and sit on the top of off stump and the ball will move.
Yes.
Now, the powers that be have done a lot to try and negate that, I think. And I think this year in the Championship, you see more of that style of bowler struggle a bit more. The ball's gone a bit softer.
Yep.
And they're trying to encourage pace and spin, I think. They try and make sure it's better suited. Now, one thing I do think we've got to be really careful with the county game, that it's there to provide players for England, but it's also there to provide great entertainment for each community that it serves. And if we get it wrong, it become bland, flat pitches with a soft ball.
Ropey balls, yeah.
And we have to wait. By the time you've waited for the fast bowlers to come through, the game will be dead.
Yeah.
There's no one to watch it.
Yeah. It's interesting because, the great West Indies side of the 80s, 4 fast bowlers, but they were all different.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all fast. Cookie, believe it or not, we have this regular argument about how fast.
They're fast for you, Aggers. They're fast for you.
How fast they were back in the day, but they were all different. Like Colin Croft who's here today, completely different action to Michael Holding, and so on. So it is that balance. What do you think England are looking for in their attack?
Well, I think from what I hear, both from what they say publicly and what I hear kind of privately, they are very keen on higher pace at the moment, but they still believe that in every attack there is space for that Jimmy Anderson style bowler. There will never be another Jimmy Anderson, but Chris Woakes is fulfilling that role in this attack, you would say, and then Gus Atkinson and Mark Wood are quicker. So someone like Cookie's former teammate Sam Cook is in contention despite not being as quick. They will talk a lot about wanting high pace, but someone like him is going to be in the mix, and I think that's also comes back to Robinson. I think he is competing in that category.
Yes.
Rob Key's been quite clear about Ollie Robinson, to go back to him, but he at 82 miles an hour he is going to average 20 odd in Test cricket, but at 76 miles an hour, and actually even slower, is what we saw in Ranchi in India. It was really slow, like 60s. When he went in the back, admittedly, but he isn't going to be a threat at Test level, so they want him to prove that that's his pace, his 82 or whatever is his stock pace. Other than that, I think they're going to be looking for quicker, bigger guys, which is why we see Dylan Pennington picked. Josh Tongue is another one of Peter's players, like Ollie Stone. You've got a few. They really like John Turner at Hampshire, who has played, 2 or 3 games for Hampshire, but he's played more T20 for them, but it's swift. So those kind of bowlers, I think.
Clearly, you just want a balanced attack.
Yeah.
You want, I remember...
Balance for me includes in seam bowling. You've got to have someone who bowls into a wind for a start. You things like that. But you do. You have to have that sort of thing.
Going back a little bit into when I was captain, we I don't know how many times we did, but Woakes, Stokes, Broad and Anderson, we played a bit. And they are different bowlers, but they're quite similar bowlers, and actually they all try and get the wickets in a similar way, and I'm sure there's people shouting at the radio, they don't, they're very different bowlers, and probably all of them will say they're not. But when, as a captain, when you're always just trying to bowl top of off, all 4 of them, that's what they do. You if that doesn't work, you've got no real plan B, and we can't, if it's swinging and nipping, mainly not in England, most of the times there's always something in the wicket, you're absolutely fine. But when you don't get that in the wicket, then they can be saying, and batsmen, I found that batsmen, good international quality or excellent quality batsmen, get in a rhythm against that. So you do need something different.
Shake it up.
Just whether it's, that's why I think the Australia attack with obviously Stark, that 4-man attack of Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins and Lyon, that is 4 very different bowlers you have to face as a batting as an opener or any time. And I think that's just luck. It's luck that they've come on at the same period of time together, and I think that's a great balanced side. Not everyone's going to have a left arm, I get all that, but if you're trying to pick a side to play in for any Test match, you just want some kind of balance, a slight point difference. And actually on this attack you probably do that, and that's so you're trying to fit the best bowlers into that style. So now that's what I will be looking at. So Sam Cook, you're right, competes with that holding opening bowler place. If he's the best person at that time, he gets a go, and if he flies, he's brilliant, and he plays, and that's how I think the next 8 months we'll see England, won't we? And you'll know as a coach, Morsey, something almost unexpected happens, and someone grabs it. You'd have said beginning season wouldn't have been your opening bowler in July, but then in a year's time you're thinking, how did this happen? How is he leading our attack and being a best bowler, and he flies for 5 years?
Yeah, I think that people come on little spurts. Dylan Pennington's mentioned earlier was a bit like that. He wasn't an absolute shoo-in for the first game. Did really well through pre-season. We played him. Bit of a nervous first spell, and then suddenly started to go. And by the end, he's our leading wicket taker. His consistency's just gone through the roof, and his pace has got better and better and better. He's got a great relationship, big lad, great relationship with Kevin Shine, and Kevin knows what an international ball. 15 years with the ECB, knows the form. But Dylan's got, I guess you've been there as a quick. We talk about who don't overcomplicate. So in the modern game, there's so much information, but Dylan.
What are you saying about fast bowlers' mentality, Peter?
Well, I love the ones that keep it simple. I guess I'm not saying they have to be stupid, but that idea of, I just run in and I let it rip. And Dylan's got a bit of that in him, I think. And I think internationally, you've got to have that. It's going back a long time. I asked Vince van der Bijl, who you'll remember,
very
Middlesex, who was, I think he was chair of the match refs, might still be. I said, if you give me one bit of advice as a coach, what does a bowler need to be a top flight international player? And I thought he'd say something about run-ups and all that. He said he's got to be the eternal optimist. He'll play on some of the flattest pitches. Yeah. But if he runs in every day as a quick, and he hits the deck expecting every ball to be a wicket, and I always think of someone like Darren Gough for that, then he said he's a player. If he can't do that internationally, he won't have the will or the mindset to be able to do it at top level.
I remember being at your house some years ago, and you said, I've got a lad, Josh Tongue, look out for him. You did mark it down. I went back and I scribbled it down. Must have been 6 years ago, I suspect, maybe. He has come in, and we've seen what he can do. But it's just one of those frustrations of a number of these bowlers who get injured. And I suspect that's probably always been the case. But it doesn't seem to be quite on the same scale that the fast bowlers do these days.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I look at, Cookie made that great attack. Pat Cummins went through his journey. Yeah. Jimmy Anderson went through nearly 3 years. I think Shamar
Joseph might be here, by the way.
Yeah.
He doesn't look quite strong enough.
Quite, yeah. So you go through, and then I think the player learns. I think the thing we've learned over time, and I think we've been told that by a lot of ex-players or whatever, natural's best. You refine what you've naturally got to generate pace. And I think Jimmy's done that. They sort of tried to change him for a bit, and he went back to, I'd say he's a rotational bowler. He sort of winds himself up and unfolds. Beautiful to watch. And I think everybody's got to find that style. But injuries are going to happen to young men. I mean, you can't stop it. But I think you do look at bowlers that don't get injured as much. So I look at someone like Dylan, in his career so far, he's done really well. So there's a robustness about some people that we see, and some people do pick up a lot. And unfortunately, if you do pick up a lot of injuries, sometimes there's not that much you can do about it, really. England, maybe our lifestyle is slightly different to some other countries. Pakistan is one I always look at in some ways, and they seem to produce these bowlers who come flying in, who generally, if they do pick up injuries, it seems more through a massive volume because they've played international for 4 or 5 years. Whereas our lads, for whatever reason, we do seem to pick up stress fractures and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think Andy's we've got some sort of runners and riders here of names and so on. But Cookie, you stand down for a little while. There's that snort about me not being fast that can see you off. But people like Tongue, Stone, how's he getting on, by the way?
Ollie?
Yeah.
Stone, he's doing really well.
He's a lovely fella.
He's a lovely fella, and he's another classic. He had 2 years of injuries, really. Yeah. Touch wood. This year.
Serious operations.
Yeah, he's been on the park all the time. And he looks great. He's growing back into it.
Easy, smooth act.
Will mentioned him before. Yeah. He's a bowler who's got international quality. He's got international quality pace. He's got a record that says he's got a great chance. So, our hope for him is by playing more, he just gets his consistency where it wants to be, and you get your game sense back, which he's got, I think, at the moment, and he gets into the crack.
Does it help that the season is so disjointed with the different formats and so on? I mean, I think we were lucky in that our championship cricket was seamless, really. Yeah. So you could keep in a rhythm of playing what they now call red ball cricket. We didn't have white ball cricket. But you were just in that constant rhythm of playing.
Well, I don't think it helps bowlers. I mean, interesting, because we've got Kevin and we've talked about it a lot. Actually, we play in 2020s and we have our lads bowling longer spells of red ball or something during 2020 to keep them strong enough so when we come back, because nearly by under bowling, you just do these 4 over bursts, it's not going to keep you strong enough. So that rhythm you talk about, you're trying to keep bowlers in that rhythm during the short.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's only so much they can do. But yeah, I mean, I think now, listen, I think we all understand the system we run, but it's not a simple system anymore, because four tournaments don't go into 6 months.
No.
Never have done. When we played B&H and Nat West and 40 over, John Player League.
Don't forget the short runs. That was the only thing that was really odd for a fast bowler back in those
short
days.
runs, yeah.
The 15-yard run for the Sunday
Malcolm
League.
Marshall still bowled just as quick.
People running sideways along the line and all sorts of things to make
Yeah, all sorts of quick.
Yeah, that was the odd one. Right, so let's go on, Will. If the list of likelies, I see Matt Fisher's bowling again, but he hasn't bowled.
He's played about 40 first-class games in the better part of a decade.
Yeah,
he's of all of them, he's won his.
Bowled nicely in the West Indies, that Test match that he played.
Sakeem Mahmood's another one who's had a lot of injury. I mean, Jofra Archer, we've made it this far through this conversation without mentioning Jofra Archer, who is...
Do you think he'll play Test cricket again?
I do, actually. For the first time, watching him in the Caribbean, I've got that confidence that his body is building up that robustness. I think they've got a plan. I think he's not going to play any red ball cricket this year, I don't think.
Yeah.
And they are looking at that India series next summer. Possibly as a Zimbabwe test here just before that. Maybe that might be the first time we see him with a red ball. I do believe he will play red test cricket again. I lost faith a little bit last year, but I think we will. And when you throw him into an attack with options like Atkinson and Wood and Josh Tongue, who they really like, I think it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's a long period not to bowl, though. It's a long period not to do it.
It's a long time. I mean, Josh has had a tough run of it.
What was it, 28?
Jofra? Yeah, 28.
For Jofra, I mean...
To have all this period of not bowling.
But he's a world-class player. I mean, I think when you speak about Jofra, he's a rare breed, I think. When the lad burst on the sea, the way he played, Test match or 2020 or 50 over, you watched him play, and the ease of his pace, the quality of what he delivered, if you get a player like that in any team, special things can happen. And he's been unlucky to get the injury, the elbow and whatever, but I can see what England are thinking. If they can get him ready with enough chronic load into him, ready for those big series, and they get him on the park, he's going to win him some Test matches.
It's interesting, the whole fast bowling selection for Australia last time, all these fast bowlers, of course, they all fell in a heap.
Exactly. It's best laid plans.
You put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah. So let's Sam Cook then, Cookie, come on. Sam, he's obviously talked about a lot. Can I just say that Alistair Cook didn't know that Sam Cook wrote that great song? Yeah, what a wonderful world. So anyway, I've educated him today, and that's not his nickname apparently. But in terms of England is obviously being talked about a lot. What are your thoughts?
I think absolutely he's ready to go. Yeah. From what I've seen over the last 5 years, he doesn't bowl express pace, but he doesn't bowl bad balls, and he does just enough with it. It's very skillful, and you talk about the other side when you speak to opening batters who face him, is that he's just on you all the time. The one thing he will have to do, and we kind of haven't really mentioned this conversation, the step from being a second team player to getting up to the rigours of county cricket and doing a county season and getting yourself, that takes a couple of years, I think, from getting your body to be able to bowl however many overs you need to bowl and get you through those 14 games. And then you do that for a period, and then it's the step up of the intensity of Test cricket, which does take a year or so. I think probably 2 years of kind of physical strength as well. The one thing I'm going to say about Sam Cook, he's almost done that. He has bowled so many overs. We play don't play anymore. Essex play a 4-man attack pretty much. Obviously Simon Harmer bowls a lot of Essex's overs. I get that, but he has done that. He is match hardened. I genuinely think he's ready to go, but he won't fit in at the express pace, and he will ask lots of questions of quality bowlers, and there'll be certain days where he doesn't pick up the wickets, but doesn't everyone do that?
Yeah.
But because he doesn't bowl quickly, people will say, oh, look, on a flat one he's going to be useless, but he won't be.
It was actually here against your Notts team that I think really cemented with this England setup that he has the ability to take the step up. It was Kookaburra ball in a game.
I was going to mention that when everyone else is getting 600.
very pitch that nobody really got anything out of, and he did. I mean, interesting thing for Sam Cook. I always remember Dominic Cook as a character because he was a good bowler, Dominic, really good bowler, and he had a really fire in his belly, and he was aggressive. And when he went to Test match cricket for me, I'm watching as a fellow player then probably, or maybe just starting coach. I'm watching him play, but it was like this is his stage, and he got better. And that the way he was. Graham Swan's another really talented bowler, but you put him on the stage and he went, this is where I want to be. This is how I'm going to be. I'm showing off. I'm going for it. So you never know that till you put the guy on the park.
No, it's true.
That's what you don't know. And that's the beauty of when you debut people for me. How do they actually take to it? Because if they do, bang, you're away.
Who else would you? I mean, Pennington. I mean, you mentioned him, but I mean, given that he's in the squad,
there's a lot to like about Dylan. Honestly, really straightforward, straight run up, hits the deck hard and off stump. There's a reason he's got his 30 wickets this year, because he's bowled well consistently over a period of time, and he matches the pace. I mean, the pace studies that have come out recently were probably done in the 80s and 90s. Anything over 85 miles an hour takes more wickets at Test match level statistically.
Yeah.
So of course they're interested in it, and certainly when we go, Cookie means going overseas. If you've just got England style seamers, you need to open things up in India, in Australia, different places. Dylan's got a chance. I think what they'll want to see with Dylan is how he's around the group. So Gus Atkinson was with England in the winter.
Do you want me to go more than you? One thing what I've got is about it is now Broad and Anderson aren't there. Everyone, pretty much all those players. You can name your list, Aggers. I can't read your handwriting.
I know, it's terrible.
It's all out there. You're waiting.
I've gone Tungstone, Pennington, Overton, Cook, Potts, Archer, Robinson, Saqib, Fisher. Passes in brackets is he's serving a suspension loan, but that's just names that we've sort of thrown in.
Plus obviously the 3 or 4 3 playing in this game.
Yes.
You're basically, as a coach, you've obviously been there. You're looking at the list and you're wanting 2 of those names to jump up, make that big step, and they're the ones leading England for the next 3 years. Actually, out of those players, you actually don't know who's going to do that.
No, you don't.
You can ask a question about every single one of those players, and it's down to them. And that's probably the reason. Well, it's not probably. It is the reason James Anderson is no longer playing for England, because that's one place not available for someone else to do that, and they've taken that long-term view, rightly or wrongly, to see it. And it's down to those guys. If they get an opportunity, Gus has obviously done well. I mean, it's a dream debut, clearly the 12. But if he backs it up now, he's taken a big step, and that's what you're wanting to do.
And he was with England in the winter, wasn't he? He was getting a sense of the environment in the winter. Didn't play.
Yeah.
But so Dylan will be getting a bit of that. They'll be getting an idea what Dylan's like.
You feel you belong. I was talking yesterday about turning up the day before the game, not knowing if you're playing, not knowing if you're playing at 10 o'clock. Anyone missing from there on my little list there, Will, that you?
No, not particularly. I think they would love a left armour at some stage. For one, they've mentioned in dispatches is Josh Hull. It's extremely early. He's at Leicester. He's barely played. Extremely early. Right. And they've also mentioned, I've heard Reece Topley's name knock about a bit. Don't totally rule it out. He doesn't get much chance to play Red Bull cricket at the moment. But
I was going to say Reece is good enough for me, but I don't think his body's going to let him play. I don't think. The other name I thought is probably, maybe we haven't mentioned, is Bryden Cars.
Yes.
Who has a chance to bat 8. So he seems like Woke's filling the spot batting 8. That you need somebody to balance sometimes who's going to bat at a certain position in a Test match, and Cars has got a chance of that, I think.
I've come very late to you, Andy. I'm sorry, we're chatting away here, but of those, I'm pretty sure whose figures in county cricket this summer are going to stand out as being the best, and he's the one who seems to be on the naughty chair at the moment, because Ollie Robinson has got 27 wickets at about 24, I think this summer. I mean, I think that's comfortably above most of those.
I'll get this season's figures up, but also 76 wickets at 22 in his Test career so far, which is objectively a fantastic start, albeit there have been games where he's underperformed or missed due to fitness. Sam Cook's stats since the start of the 2019 summer, 241 wickets, average 17. And looking at the averages in county cricket, the three who stand out in recent years are Sam Cook, Ollie Robinson and Jimmy Anderson.
He's a better than Ollie's, aren't they? 29 at 13.
Yeah.
That despite injury.
Yes, so that's this summer. Sam Cook 29 at 30. Slightly older Jamie Porter, maybe his chance has gone. I think he was in a squad a few years ago. Also, fantastic first class record. They've had John Turner from Hampshire in white ball squads, but he's only played 3 first class matches. But we have seen with the current setup, they do often pick a type of player on potential and the sort of cricketer they are rather than numbers. Matthew Potts' numbers are excellent. 20 wickets in 3 A tests in India, averaged 17 over the winter. Also did well in his the 6 tests he's played so far. 23 wickets, averaged just under 30. Also a useful lower order player. 199 wickets, averaged 23 since the start of 2021. So those are the players who put up the really big numbers. And you've got the likes of Saqib Mahmood, Josh Tongue, Ollie Stone, who've got decent numbers but have missed a lot of cricket through injury.